Aren't you Frederick Douglass?
Miss Colvin refused to give up her seat on that bus.
I'm like, this is a children's film.
That's Suge Knight.
He's like,
Okay, here we go.
I will listen. You are perfect.
Listen here.
Perfectly.
Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy.
You're just being protective.
Oh, yeah. Hello, babies.
I have to go.
We have to go to Minnesota to practice.
That's good. I was like, listen, you might have just scored another viewer.
Okay. Not complaining.
No, I'm complaining. I was like, am I looking good on camera? I was like, I asked my girlfriend, I was like, listen, I know you're biased, but like be unbiased for a second. Do I look good? She said yes. Hi there. My name is Octavian, but around town I'm known as Phoenix Dynasty. It can be Dynasty if I like you. That's my call tag. I am known as Denton's Little Fireball. So I am a local drag artist. I've been doing drag for 2 to 3 years now. I think I'm running into my 3rd level. I am a transmasculine drag king. What that means is I am trans and I do drag, but I don't like cross-dress or do any of that. If you don't know what drag is, it is a over-exaggeration of like typical gender things. So like when we see drag queens, they're doing like hyper-femininity. When you see drag kings, they're doing hyper-masculinity. But honestly, the same way that gender works on a spectrum, drag works on a spectrum as well. When we see stuff like RuPaul's Drag Race, that's only one facet of a massive community. Or I'm very dancey, very flashy. I love a good suit. I love to move. I'm always wearing some sort of jewelry if I feel like it. I'm also one of those kings that does not do a lot of makeup just because, like, I think it's a lot of work. Not that I won't. Like, for my Phoenix number, I do, like, a smoky makeup, a lot of fire. Shoot, even, like, U.S. sailors used to just dress up in drag for fun. You know what I mean? This is why, like, in the current political climate that we're in, I'm like, I don't understand why it is such a far reach for you to imagine the idea of, like, a cisgender man deciding it's fun to dress up like a woman. Okay. They've been doing it forever, but really drag and like, ballroom, drag and ballroom are kind of like intertwined in my opinion, because they both started with black and brown people, back in like the 70s and 80s. And don't count me as the most informed about this. My elders have taught me a lot over time, but like, the amount of support that our community, like the reason why it looks so bad is because our culture continuously gets erased, right? Like, shoot, I had to explain to a friend the other day that like book burnings and all that stuff, that's not new. The reason why we don't know much about people being trans is because they destroyed all of the info that we might have had on that. Like, scientific studies, like just boots on the ground interviews with people, like history. And we're repeating that. That's why drag's so important right now. You know, it's like we need these spaces in order to be ourselves and show that little queer kid who's surrounded by people who don't see eye to eye with like that sort of lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like for them to feel like it's safe to be themselves.
Alright, last shot, then we're going inside. Nope.
Fingers down my spine. Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your fingers down my spine? Girl, you look mighty fine. Won't you rub your...
The synopsis. I'm Sodi Moore. I am a neo-burlesque performer, but neo is more of a subversion. I like to be more spooky, ooky, macabre. Sometimes I do some cosplay numbers, so yeah. So my undergrad is in dance. I went to Texas Women's University for that. And I found that I didn't really vibe a lot with modern dance, and I felt like I had more autonomy to the world of burlesque, and I got to make the kind of work I wanted rather than doing somebody else's work. Historically, Black burlesque performers have been tastemakers and innovators and have added quite a bit to the genre, and do not get credited nearly enough. And some of the more famous dancers historically have been Black, like Josephine Baker. She's a massive one. Yes, and I would say that burlesque gave a lot of Black folks a lot of autonomy that they wouldn't have had. They gave them a lot more financial freedom that they wouldn't have had otherwise. That same financial freedom from solely performing burlesque does not exist anymore, sadly. But it has paved the way for strip clubs to stripping continues that legacy of having more financial freedom. I would say burlesque is more focused on characters, like playing with those characters and making more of a political statement. I would say that for my contribution to burlesque, it is more so to give representation and to change people's minds about different things. Like, for example, I choose to keep my body hair and I choose to cut my hair short, and that is something that is beautiful. And there's no one way to be non-binary. And I feel that burlesque shows do a lot for audience members and helps people realize things about themselves and helps people see different things about themselves. And since I am a very niche individual, I feel like that's my contribution.
Just in like a little room.
Alexa, change the lights to white. Alexa, change the lights to white. Alexa, change the lights to white.
I go by Lil Dirt. I've been living in Denton. I want to say this is like my 9th or 10th year living in Denton. Graduated Ryan 2013. I didn't start at Ryan until I was a junior. So I moved here when I was a junior in high school. It was like a big culture shock. I moved from New York. I had never had a chance to live with my dad up until that point. And it was kind of like a, hey, you know, do you want some of your father's guidance? And I was like, oh yeah, I'll go live with dad. So he was living here. I'm actually related through marriage to Frenchie Rialt. So if you ever see like those orange Frenchie trucks around town, that's my great uncle Frenchie. After high school, I started taking music a little bit more seriously and then started getting into like the local stuff.
I got a crazy influential person right here too. This nigga out there, listen, he's so catchy.
Which is crazy though. I started out not making rap at all. Started out in a punk band with my friends because those were the first shows I went to. I saw people like New Science Projects, Fish Narc, Two Nights. Like, to me, these are like Denton legends. Like, stuff like that kind of like got me into the atmosphere, because this town is really, really awesome when it comes to supporting local stuff. And then I started trying to do that a little bit more seriously. So I started focusing a little bit more on making beats, trying to take it more seriously, and then try to kind of do it in my own direction. Started out and it wasn't that great. But I wanted to make sure that everything that I did felt authentic to myself. So I wanted to focus on using influences that felt like real to me. Like, I'm a big geek, huge nerd. So I wanted to make sure that like that was like present in my music, because even if that wasn't my subject matter of what I was going to talk about, I wanted that to still kind of like cut through. So I used to sample like, you know, like Mario and all that stuff. And then this is back in the days before, like nowadays I'll listen to music and I'll hear those samples. I'm like, yeah, it's super nerdy. I'm like, wow, like how did we get here? But no, and then through Andy's, man, I really got to give it all, like, a lot of credit to them. They used to let us do shows there. Mulberry Mansion and the White House, House of God. There's all these like famous Denton venues that we used to just throw these shows every single weekend. That environment allowed us to kind of create a lane for like the kind of rap music that we were making. Those guys like Richie and Pudge and stuff, they make, you know, they make more like boom bap rap.
Bitch. Hey. All these lames talking on my name, swear I just ignore it. My shit, dog, you know I crushed that immediately. I didn't hear 5 seconds of it. What the fuck? Yeah. Dog, yes, please.
He exploded.
Yes, bro.
Into little balls, and I collected. Nowadays, just like the scene in general. So the scene nowadays is, it's a lot.
From your perspective.
From my perspective, the scene nowadays is kind of fragmented. Most of the people that were heavily involved and kind of like created opportunities for people, they're not around or in the same positions that they were anymore. A lot of the venues that we used to use don't exist anymore. And then a lot of us have gotten older, so like the prospect of like a house show doesn't hit the same when you're almost 30, you know. The overall creativity vibe and the melting pot that used to exist, like kind of everyone keeps to themselves now.
Okay. Well, I am Linda Eaddy, and I'm the Director of Film Programming for the Denton Black Film Festival.
How long
And I always put etc. on there because I do a little bit more than film. We completed our 11th year this January, so we're starting our 12th year in 2026. My husband and I, we were at another film festival, and he was president of and he still is, of the Denton African American Scholarship Foundation that gives scholarships to students. And after we left a screening, he said, you know, there's not enough black cinema. This is 2014. You know, that Oscar So White, all of those things were going on. He said, you know, we ought to do a film festival. It was successful. We had about 800 attendees that year, and that was really good. So that started us off, and then after that, it's just been uphill, you know. Well, because we are part of the community. I mean, the thing is, we're here. And I think part of the problem in our country is because we don't know each other's, well, a lot of people don't know our history. It's been hidden and people are trying to hide it again, but it's there, it's still real, things happened. So, you know, it's just really important to have a space where people can come and we can listen to stories, listen to maybe what might be different points of view, but many times you find similarities between people and the things that we want, what we want in life. The thing is, why should we run off from a place that was ours? You know, too. We had the Quakertown was here, and it was a thriving community. It was kind of a city within a city in a sense. And so this is our place too. I mean, we live here too. It's just, you know, it's interesting, like being in the campus theater. When I was a child, I would not have been able to, I would have had to sit in the balcony if I was able to go to the theater. But now, you know, we take over the theater for a few days to have our festival. So it just shows you, you know, how things have changed, you know.
Yeah, so we have like a turnout schedule for all of our animals, so everybody gets to go out during the day. Typically, they had to stay in today, but typically everyone goes out during the day and then they come up at night, and so they all get some love and affection. This is Kahlua. She was one of our rescues. Well, yeah, 9 Spur Ranch, and essentially what we do, I actually am originally from Alaska, and I moved down here as a, doing like equine reproduction and that sort of stuff, and I did that for several years, and then I found that I absolutely love rehabbing and rehoming animals. So that is Hey Hey. So this handsome fella right here is my Hanky. Hi, Hanksters. Yeah. So this is pretty much the face of 9 Spur Ranch right here. He actually has a coloring book coming out. Water buffalo are actually not considered exotic in the United States anymore. The University of Florida did a study on them back in the 70s, and after the study was done, they just sold off all the animals. So there's actually a ton of them, especially here in Texas. But, you know, I mean, they're still considered like an exotic meat, but they're not considered an exotic animal to live here. So, He, though, was actually out at a kill pen when I was out there. And I was out getting a load of horses, and this guy was out there with his brother, and of course, you know, caught my eye, and everybody was, oh, Shishana, you need him, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I was like, I think I'm good, and then they finally talked me into it, and he was like 3 months old, and I was like, I'll just get him healthy, and we'll send him on his way, and you know, 5 years later. And people also don't really understand, I am very strict about like what I bring in here, just because it is open to the public, and you know, I have kids, I can't afford to get hurt. If I get hurt, that means the horses aren't going to get taken care of, you know, so I am extremely strict about what comes in here, and I have certain rules that we follow as to, like, you know, no stallions, first sign of aggression, like, I just can't have it. You're a mess, buddy. His eyes are closed, he's falling asleep. But no, I mean, like, growing up as like the only black child in like pretty much the entire freaking state, like, it was hard, you know, and it was, I stood out like a sore thumb. I've been this height, and I'm not a small person. Like, I've been this height and size since like 5th grade. So it's like, you know, it was just a big target sign of like, hey, bullies, you know. So I had to grow up learning to have like the defenses and stuff, and my parents, I would say, blessed me with a sense of humor. Yeah, we're both big and black now. So he was an Amish mule. He was a work, and now he's come here, and I think he's been ridden like 3 times since he's been here. So now you're spoiled and you get to live the life. Well, but I mean, it's just one of those things that I'm like, you know, it definitely has made it harder for me where people don't want to take me seriously, because, you know, it's, well, what kind of education have you had? What kind of, you know, I have to prove myself just a little bit more than what other people would have to, you know. Yeah, and it's like, you know, I have multiple degrees in this, and, you know, it's like when I was homeschooled, my homeschooling would actually pay for me to go to travel and to go to different like clinics and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I mean, I dedicated my life to all of this, and so it can be definitely like frustrating to be like, well, now I've got to like start over and prove myself to these people, or, you know, stuff.
This is very timely. Josephine Baker was also a spy for Allies and actively took down different members of the Nazi Party through seduction and also information exchange. It definitely does, like, the existential dread does seep in quite a bit, just because, I mean, it's something that is very likely repeating itself, and history is terrifying. With that, with somebody like me, I'm definitely on the list of people to be marginalized, but personally, in my personal life, have survived quite a bit, and that I have the mental tools to endure whatever horrors are going to persist.
Things will get worse. I've already started to see it, you know what I mean? But it's our job to continue trying and just live. Find joy in the little moments. I'll be a little personal here. So, like, back when I was a little bit smaller, still figuring out myself, I did not want to be alive, you know what I mean? I did not see hope in the next day. What kept me here was the idea that, like, there is joy farther beyond anything that I can see with my moral brain, waiting for me on the other side. And I can safely say that I'm there right now. I'm in the best relationship of my life. I'm going to propose to my girlfriend soon. Like, we're gonna get married. There is happiness and joy in this world in the darkest of places. And the sun still turns, you know what I mean? Shit, when we were walking up to go get some goddamn ice cream, 2 dogs ran up to us. That was grand. It was joyous times, you know what I mean? So, The future is in my opinion, us continuing to persevere and survive and be there for each other.
Personally, I'm just doing my thing because I take influence from a lot of things that aren't like, this is what I'll say. I do think about it, but I think about it from the perspective of I'm representing for people that look like me that are into alternative things. You know, like, who's to say that a black dude, huge, beefy guy with tattoos can't love Yu-Gi-Oh! And you know, have Pokemon card collection that's super impressive. Those are the people that I'm kind of speaking for. People who are typecast into like a, you know, certain box just because they want to identify as something that represents where they came from, but their interests go outside of that box. And that's kind of always what I want to inspire with my music as well, is for people to like leave that box. Like, hey, a trap song doesn't have to just be talking about selling drugs. I could be talking about how I could be relating what I'm doing to things that interest me. I talk about what my life is, and it's video games and anime and hanging out with my friends. Like.
Well, I think part of it is because I've been on the planet for a while now. I have. I mean, I went to segregated schools until 10th grade. So I've lived through those times. And I think one thing about the black community, and it was our theme this year, was resilience. Because you connect to, we're very resilient. We've had to be. And because of that, though, you kind of walk when times get tough or things aren't going your way, you have to just push through it. And we know that people came before me that had it even tougher. They pushed through. You know, we're still here. I mean, I'm signing all of my emails now that I'm living in gratitude, resilience, and joy. Because you have to keep that, to keep hope, keep a positive attitude, you have to keep hold on to that joy. And I know sometimes people, I think, don't understand it. How do you go through these times and you still hold on to that? But you have to. That's an important part of who we are. I think it's in our DNA, just like resilience. There's joy too.
Robinson gets the first hit off Ford. It's a homer into the left field stand.
Wild Water Buffalo.